Things are pretty interesting on the Nintendo Switch sales front, guys, because the Nintendo Switch is doing something that's quite honestly impossible. Now, I've stated that before, it does the impossible. Nintendo Switch does the impossible. Tears of the Kingdom does the impossible. But honestly, this is the impossible when it comes to the competition, when it comes to the business, and when it comes to just what the Nintendo Switch has recently done, especially in Japan. But we're seeing this worldwide as well. I'm going to go ahead and jump into that, in addition to many other things with Monolith Soft and maybe what their next move is after a very positive thing that recently happened. But before we get into all that, guys, what's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell, as I'm not in my normal office and I will be getting back to it soon for those that are probably asking. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump right back into talking about the Nintendo Switch in Japan. Now, there were many people out there that talked about how stupid I was when it comes to Nintendo Switch and calling me names and fanboy and stuff, just because I stated that the PlayStation 5, in my opinion, wasn't doing that great based off of a system that had been supply strapped. The fact that people were pointing out and rushing to tell me and tagging me on Twitter and in YouTube videos and linking me all sorts of stuff saying, look, oh, the Nintendo Switch is being beat out by PlayStation 5 earlier in the year. And I would respond usually with, well, I mean, it's not really selling much software, and this hardware sales aren't really that great for a system that's been supply strapped. You would think that you would see 100K plus if people really had that thirst and that demand for the PlayStation 5, just like you saw with the Nintendo Switch. At times it would sell 300,000, 200,000, 100 and something thousand at its peak in Japan. So to me, it didn't really feel like it was that impressive, considering the Nintendo Switch is 6+ years old at this point. But nevertheless, it went on for a bit. But now for the past 4 months or so, the Nintendo Switch has not only been outselling the PlayStation 5 in Japan, doing quite literally the impossible for a system this old in its life, but it's also doing well worldwide, winning NPDs in terms of the US and selling at over 100,000 units per week in Japan for the past couple weeks. Once again, I've never seen a system, never covered a system that's ever sold over 100,000 units per week consecutively, going on its 7th calendar year. That has to be some type of record, because the Nintendo Wii was already dead by its 4th, 5th year. Even the Nintendo DS, I don't think it even did that much. It just sold a lot at the tail end when they were $99 out there. Now, another thing, that the Nintendo Switch is about to hit 30 million in Japan and quite possibly become the best-selling system of all time in Japan, probably by 2024 at some point. Going at this pace, we'll have to wait and see what Nintendo does with the next gen Switch, but it's pretty incredible to see. But it's also pretty incredible to see all the people that are no longer covering Japanese sales that would constantly tag and tweet at me when the PlayStation 5 was doing a bit better. Now you guys can actually sit back, relax, and let people like myself cover the Japanese sales for you, because I've been doing it for quite some time, and I'll make sure to report, hey, when I think things are going really good for one platform, I will say it based off of history. I'll use actual sales numbers. I'm not just gonna sit there and pump up Nintendo or pump up this or that based off of anything. It's gonna be based off of the numbers there. So it's always based off of the numbers, guys. Always based off of that, what I see, and I put it into an analysis, especially when it comes to the past and comparing and kind of what to see, what trends are happening and all of that. And let's talk exactly what the Nintendo Switch did in Japan. 106,214 units. The PS5 did 49,294. So there was a bit of a surge with Final Fantasy 16, but as you can see, it's dropped down considerably from that surge, and even then it didn't even crack for the last week's sales. Even with Final Fantasy 16, a major AAA Japanese IP, that didn't even get the PS5 to crack 100,000, and that's what I was worried about, because we all knew they were leading up into the Final Fantasy VI launch. And if you look at the sales of Final Fantasy 16, one of the lowest in Japan, and the fact that it didn't break the 100K mark, people were really upset or angry at my video when I said the harsh reality of Final Fantasy 16 sales. But it wasn't to hate or anything like that. It was simply talking about the Japanese sales and kind of seeing what the impact was on hardware, and we're seeing right now. Usually when you have a game like this, if you see a big impact, man, you're gonna get at least 3-4 weeks of residual sales, and that impact should be shown there with the big heavy hitters in Japan. But when you look at the PlayStation 5, only 49,000 units for the past week, even with Final Fantasy 16, and even maybe a little bit worse yet here, guys. Final Fantasy 16 drops down to 37,000 units plus physical only. Now that's about what you'd expect for a drop with a big AAA game, although maybe it's a little bit more. But yeah, about 90% drop there, along with the game not doing as well as it did before with previous entries like FF7 Remake and also FF15. I was just simply looking at the numbers, and now it kind of solidifies, yeah, this was not as big of a system seller and software mover as maybe Sony and Square Enix thought it would be, based off of the numbers here in Japan. And we're also seeing in the UK, we're seeing on Amazon here in the US, and in many other countries, Tears of the Kingdom is already, once again, the top selling game, or it never left the top selling game. Obviously the much bigger install base there, but I'm not sure if Final Fantasy 16 is moving that extra software that people thought that it could move based off of the numbers. And I keep on saying based off of the numbers, you know, because I don't want people to think that I'm just saying it to hate on the game. I like Final Fantasy 16. I think it's a really good game. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it's going to sell well over the long run as they get that 18-month plan going and kind of rejuvenate it with some new marketing and maybe some price drops later in the year. But I do also want to mention another thing here, guys, and that is Raincode Master Detective Archives. That game doing pretty good for Spike Chunsoft considering the type of game that it is, and if you compare it to Danganronpa and some of the games that they did before, they did over 55,000 units, 55,339 to be exact, which is good for that game, and that doesn't count digital. If you put like about 20%, maybe they hit about 70K or so. So not bad for the style of game and what it is. 78 on Metacritic. I was a little bit worried because it was a 73 at first. Then a bunch of new scores came in and bumped it up to a 78. So not bad for a brand new AA style of RPG that's incredibly weird and not like a typical action RPG or action game or platform or something that is typically selling well on the Nintendo Switch. It's a little different. It's something that my copy, for example, hasn't even got here. So if you guys are wondering why I haven't played it yet or talked about it when it comes to the gameplay, well, it's because Amazon and my special edition isn't here until later. So I'll play it then once I get my special edition. But yeah, I think that it's pretty cool for that type of game. And once again, seeing the Nintendo Switch almost get up to 30 million here is awesome. It's going to be there pretty soon. And it's the games that are coming out. Obviously stuff like Raincode, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, games that start helping to push the Nintendo Switch, you know, really further than any other system this late in its life has went. So it's pretty cool overall to kind of be right about the analysis there, because once again, I spend a lot of time looking at these charts, looking at these sales, crunching these numbers, going back and looking at weeks, looking at how much something did, going back to this date in 2017 or 2018 and looking up the numbers for Final Fantasy 15, looking up, contrasting and comparing between 16 and 15 between the other games. I mean, it does take some time to come to a good, solid analysis. So I felt pretty good about what I was saying early in the year, even when the PlayStation 5 was doing better. And I feel pretty good about obviously what the Nintendo Switch is doing now, because I felt that once we got around the point where Tears of the Kingdom would launch and some of the other games that's coming, Nintendo maybe has a direct and they have some excitement or hype, I felt that it could boost up the Switch further at this point, even though many people were saying that, oh, it's dead in Japan. Look at what's going on. It's dead worldwide. I'm like, not quite. Nintendo's moving on to their next system, but not yet. They still have some good time left for the Nintendo Switch while it's active to sell well, and that's exactly what's happening here. So sound analysis, and once again, awesome stuff all around. But we'll see how everything works out in the future. Now let's talk about something else in terms of future, and that is Monolith Soft. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to hear about this, because we've got some news with Monolith Soft and what happened, because they actually had a 97.8% profit increase in the last fiscal year. So that's about 5.5 million plus profit. That is up a lot from the previous year. Obviously, the big game that came out, that is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now, the profit came in at 800 million yen to be exact, because obviously Japanese companies, so they're going by yen. So 800 million yen. Good increase there. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and also Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. Both of those games obviously helped out with the season passes being sold and the game itself. Plus, Monolith Soft also operates to help out Nintendo on their games. Now, they're a subsidiary. They're fully owned by Nintendo, but they still help out with Splatoon. They still help out with Animal Crossing, and they also do Legend of Zelda. They do a lot of different games here. Nintendo purchased them all the way back in 2007 and really didn't have much until Xenoblade dropped in 2010, and that's where things really got going. But the most important thing for this in terms of profit, Nintendo needs to see, and Monolith Soft needs to see, that they can be self-sufficient with their big games. Because Nintendo's obviously going to make them make Zelda and Splatoon and Animal Crossing and all that on the side. But when it comes to developing and putting resources into a game, you want to see that profit. Otherwise, Nintendo is going to be less likely to invest in the studio more. Still keep them around because they're talented, they know what they're doing when it comes to video games, but they won't let them invest and make the type of games that they want to make that are bigger budget. The fact that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was able to be Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Future Redeemed is because Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition were selling well and they're making money so they can reinvest. And obviously, Monolith Soft is getting into the next generation of Nintendo Switch hardware here. I think that their next game will be a Switch 2 title. So obviously, you want to see that they are making money, so it breeds confidence with Nintendo and the higher-ups to make sure that they get what they need to make the type of games that they make. So very happy to see this. Very happy to see that Monolith Soft is still killing it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next. And I did want to talk about that just briefly because we've talked about Xenoblade Chronicles X potentially getting a port. We've talked about the Monolith Soft's new IP, but I think at this point we really don't know because we usually generally have an idea what Monolith Soft is working on because their games do take a bit of time. We saw how long Xenoblade Chronicles X took. We saw how long Xenoblade Chronicles 3 took after 2. So I do think that this is kind of the unknown period right now at this point, and we have to just kind of wait and see what they're going to do. But I do think that the new IP, I think that could be something that maybe is two different things. It could be a clean break from the Xenoblade franchise and it's just something completely different, or it's a new style of Xenoblade games. So the same franchise, but something completely different, like Xenosaga to Xenoblade, although those are connected, but they're very different in terms of the game. So we could see something like that, shared universe connected, but very different gameplay style. Or we could see a continuation of what we've got from them before. But they did say that it's a stopping point for Xenoblade and the story, the Kloss saga and everything. So I do think they're going to move away from that and do something different with the new IP. And maybe they circle back to Xenoblade at some point in the distant future. I still feel that one of their support teams could get us a Xenoblade Chronicles Export on the Nintendo Switch, or maybe even a cross-gen type of game. I think that there is a lot that they could do, especially to bridge that gap between the next generation system, the current gen with the Switch, and what they're going to do next with their next big IP. I think the Xenoblade Chronicles Export would be awesome to have this year or even next year. I don't think we're going to get it this year, obviously. It was at the Nintendo Direct. Maybe they announce it at the next Nintendo Direct and it comes up sometime in early 2024. We've seen them do that before with a big re-release and Xenoblade Monolith Soft. We saw it with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which was announced at the September 2019 Nintendo Direct. Ended it was the one more thing, and then it launched in early 2020. So we'll have to wait and see what's going on here. But what are your thoughts with all this, guys, when it comes to Nintendo Switch in Japan? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell. We will see you for the next video. Peace.